Welcome to Modern Homestead, Alaska. I'm Jessica, and today we are actually starting the garden. How can that be? We still have the snow here in South Central Alaska, and what on earth am I doing worried about the garden in January? This will be my one and only garden content in the month of January, so why don't you join me? Starting outside of the garden here, there was enough snow I couldn't get these gates open, and I had no intention of being able to go into the garden. Alaska has had the most mild winter, to the point I can actually swing open the gate and head in here and start deciding some of the things I want to do. The reason I am outside is because the weather is permitting, and normally here in Alaska this time of year I could not be in this space, and no way I could walk and remember and think and plan ahead of time. But it has been such a mild winter that I actually can come out here and look over the land and decide exactly what I want to do. Do not worry, I know where the beds are in the garden, and so taking a little browse around. I'm not going to be actually walking on any of the garden beds, especially this area here. This has become the garlic. We went along together in the fall and planted all the garlic out on this end of the bed. I had built these arches last year. They didn't do what I had hoped. They didn't grow as I had hoped. And so this year we want to decide, what are we going to be growing on these arches and then throughout the rest of the garden. The reason I need to decide that right now here in January is all of the seeds. What seeds am I going to be starting? And if you followed last year, you know that I used almost all the seeds that we had stocked up on the homestead. And therefore, I have to decide, what am I doing, and get the seeds ordered, because if we don't get the seeds ordered very, very quickly, we will not have them. And then what is going to happen in a zone like mine is I would have to shop someplace like Home Depot or Lowe's. And what happens with those big box stores is they buy everything in bulk. They don't necessarily buy it per zone. They buy it for what's the most neutral sort of zone that the most amount of people could purchase these seeds and grow from. It isn't catered to Alaska and zones 4, 3, any of those super cold zones that we have up here. But Alaska winter is a whole different animal. But not only that, our summer doesn't get hot. I don't get blistering hot temperatures up here where I can grow green peppers and tomatoes and all of those things that you could just buy the seeds at Home Depot or Lowe's. Roberto, our dog, just went in and out of the greenhouse there. I couldn't grow those things up here. And so it would be a total waste of my money, my time, my effort, and all of that if I tried to actually grow those things here. So I need to be able to get seeds this month ordered from places that have seeds that are very specialized or adapted to our area. Back behind me, our goal and plan is, I don't know if the greenhouses are going to stay there for one more year, probably, because our number one focus this year is building a shop. And then this would become normal fence, and then I would actually like to do something a little different with the greenhouses over there, and then we would like to build permanent structures. Is that going to happen this year? I'm not certain. A girl can still dream, right? And hope that those things come along, but I'm not positive. But I do look over here from the remnants left, and those were shelling peas, and they did absolutely fantastic. We didn't get all of them harvested as everything kind of fell apart. And then the back part here, I grew, look at those massive, they were massive sunflowers. And I think that was so beautiful. And so as I walk here, remembering, I know I want to add the peas, and because the peas did so well, I remember now I want to add the peas to that trellis, and probably that one as well. And then I'm thinking on the other side of the trellis, I want to plant something that flowers and vines just on the outside of the garden there. And so now I'm remembering, do I still want to do the giant sunflower wall? I do. I absolutely loved it. I thought that was so beautiful when that grew. And so I do want to get some sunflower seeds. And what I like to do is get them in all different heights. So the low part here had sunflowers, and then it had this super, super tall one. As I walk down what I know is a path, and you can barely see them in the snow, the high areas of the rows. This is super deep soil here, right here. This is where we grew the garlic last year. And the reason I did that is it was tomatoes and peppers, and it was a really built up row, and it had a trellis over it, kind of a thing that Aaron had built me. And I was able to put chicken wire around it to keep the chickens from getting into this space. And so I needed to protect the garlic, or they would just come in and pull it all up and eat it. And so it worked really well to do it here. And then the garlic doesn't need that deep of soil, but what does, and what I've struggled with, is potatoes. So now my goal is to move the potatoes to this row here, and then right behind it, we'll actually build the system. Those are the raspberries, and I'm hoping to this year add some reinforcing to the raspberries so that they have something to lean on underneath the weight of the snow. So we're gonna do potatoes and then raspberries, and then spinning around. We're gonna keep some of this design. We are going to do flowers all the way to the end there, and the shelling peas that did really well are gonna go there, and then what's in the row right there is the, to this point here is garlic, and then the rest of that will be some onion. This area here, as I'll take this video in and I will start documenting some of this on paper so that I know what I'm growing and how much. I didn't like this design. It was great on paper and in my head. It didn't work so well for watering. And so what I'm going to do is this is going to become, so this whole area here will be rows to there. So there will be a walkway here, and quite possibly a walkway in the center, and then a walkway right in front of the flowers, and then the rest of this will kind of change up. But what happens is this fence here, I just tuck the hose in wherever I want it and drag it. Well, I couldn't do that because the potatoes were right here, and so I had to have like a whole wonky crazy system for watering. My ultimate goal is to figure out what is the absolute perfect layout of this garden. What areas I love we keep, and what areas didn't work out well, we're going to change them. That's also why, one of the many reasons why we don't do raised beds in here, it's just a giant garden plot, is once you set the raised beds, you can't change those, not easily. I mean, obviously you can change them, not easily. And I want to be able, as a new gardener, so this will be my 3rd season on this plot of this 40 by 40 garden. My 4th year of growing anything at all ever. And so being that new to it, just jumping in and saying, this is a forever design would have been insane. And I'm so glad that I didn't. When you're starting out a new garden space, I highly recommend play with it for a couple of years. Figure it out. I do understand there's certain locations and places where you can't do that. You have to commit to the beds and whatever. But if you have the opportunity to play around with them, definitely do it. Right back there, we have that massive water tank. That is getting moved as we're talking about the water. I keep crashing into the snow. To that side of the cow's barn, there's a lane there, and what I'm wanting to water is the greenhouses. The greenhouses need to be watered a lot more often than the outside garden, because we do, cross our fingers, get enough rain that I hardly ever have to water the garden itself, but I do have to water inside the greenhouses. Aaron's gonna build me a little stand for that giant water tank, and then we're gonna take the water runoff from the barn into that tank and then gravity feed it down into the greenhouses behind me. And then I'm gonna be using rainwater, which is gonna be so much better for my plants than our groundwater. I've shown you in a video, like the minerals and sediment that come up out of our well, not great for the plants. So that's a good thing to look at. And then I'm gonna look back as I get back to the end of the garden here and decide, here's something. I think I'm gonna grow like 8 kohlrabi, not 80 of them. I'm wanting to do a whole lot more cauliflower and a whole lot more broccoli than we've done. A little less cabbage, a bit more salad. Just working our way through and figuring things out. Having learned that the pumpkins, squash, zucchinis, all of those, they grow much better outside. We grew them inside because the first year they were a total flop altogether. So I put some in the greenhouse and some outside. That was something we tried this past year. The inside ones, I ended up just yanking them out because they can't get fertilized. So the bees don't really go into the greenhouse, and then it's a tedious process to go through and try and fertilize each one of those yourself. Then they're not getting the space, they're not getting the root development. It's a whole thing, but I need to figure out in this garden, because we absolutely love zucchini and pumpkin and squash and those things, and I just haven't gotten a real big amount of them. And then the greenhouses, of course, are for warm weathered crops that need a little higher temperature: tomatoes, peppers, and tomatillos, anything along those lines. So, well, that's pretty exciting. As I walk along the outside of the garden here, we have all of these pots that we have used, and I had gotten some free trees. 2 of them have survived. Three of them have survived. So we'll plant those out in the forest this spring. I don't know what I'd like to see. Now I say we don't do raised beds, stay away from them. I think if I have an open bottom, I could border this in some way, and I would love to see massive herb garden. I mean, like, just imagine this whole 40-foot space there. What if there were beds all along this outside, and I can do entire herb gardens on 2 of the sides, just bordering the entire garden. I honestly think I would love that. I like to grow them with a combination of flowers as well. You and I came and harvested this stuff together, and then these pots were just magnificent. They were so full, and all the flowers we had actually started from seed. As I finish the kind of walk around, you kind of hear my boots. I have cleats on because it's a solid ice show around here. I order my seeds personally from a company called Denali Seed Company, or I'll put a link in the description of the video to them, because it might be called Cool Seeds now or something like that. They are seeds. They're not necessarily grown in Alaska, but they are kind of proven to be really good seeds to grow in our weather, and I have been using them since the very beginning, and it is true. I have had great success with those seeds. But I think something I'm gonna do this year, let me know if you've ever done this. I think I'm gonna do 2 varieties, because I had done so many varieties of different things in the past. I think I'm gonna do this cabbage or this cabbage. And then as we get to the end of this season, we say, okay, here's the winner out of these 2 cabbages. So the following year we say the winner versus something new. And then going along, instead of having so many varieties of things in the garden, we can start to dial in what are our favorite varieties, and that allows 2 things for me. That allows, number 1, for me to learn which are the best varieties that I can grow in my environment and where I live. And the second thing is I love trying new things. And so I think being able to have kind of a game plan of adding new each year, competition, those sort of things, because sometimes you're going to get a variety, it can get wiped out by a bug, and another variety of the same thing will stick with cabbage, might not get wiped out by that bug. And maybe it's not the world's greatest experiment, but what I would like to do is try things new every year, and then also dial in for real, because this is my hobby. This is the thing that I enjoy. This is the thing that I love. The whole homesteading aspect, from growing, cooking, preserving, raising. We got the little dairy cow up here behind us. Raising our own food, all of that I'm passionate about, but I don't like being held down by the monotony of doing the exact same thing over and over and over. I like to try new things. I like to have new ideas, move along from there. So there is that lane that the hose will go in and it'll water the greenhouses. So that'll be wonderful. And then this is the back side of the garden. And then what we're planning on doing from this fence, the reason I wouldn't do garden beds on this side, and then I want to keep a walkway there and everything, is we're planning on increasing the cow's area once she has the baby and it melts to a much larger space. As we slowly, there's a lot of things that can poison the cow, that can deform and abort and kill the baby, that can kill the cow, that just grows wildly up here. And so we have to kind of kill it out and then increase the space, kill it out, increase the space, and then she will actually be touching that fence. And then along here, this side, maybe the same thing. Maybe we do want to do some incredibly big, look at this. We have green yarrow. What on earth? Look at the dill seeds. Isn't that neat? All right, so that's the vegetables. Hoping to have lots of herbs and flowers and all of that bordering it. And then something I want to decide on is I would love to increase the flower areas. So here we have, and a lot of people told me they will survive. So we will see. We have the peonies right here, and then a really beautiful shrub over there. That shrub had already overwintered, so it should be fine. And Aaron helped me build this little rock area, and it leads into the garden, down these areas, so on. And so I think we want to stick with like peonies there. And then we have the rhubarb over here. So this is the rhubarb bed, and then there's some flowers there. But if those don't survive, I want to increase all of this to be rhubarb. And then I learned from the botanical gardens that horseradish grows here, and it can survive and do just fine in our winters and everything else. And so I'm really interested in maybe finding a space to block in some horseradish. And then what I'm hoping, because it looks totally different right now than when it's grown over, is along this lane that will lead to the lake. I want to add something, some sort of bush or shrub. So we would knock out these alders, they just grow wildly, and then bump back to the main trees, and then have something that kind of follows along like this. And right now I'm super it's not lavender, lilac bushes. Lilac